Flexing ain't discreet about it. Extra read about it. Say you wanna beef about it. We gon' come and see about it. Flexing ain't discreet about it.
What is up, everybody?
How's it going?
So this Outlier Real Estate, Quinton Foster.
Maverick Foster.
And we kind of did one of these videos last week and frankly liked it. So we're going to keep doing these. And they're just little short podcasts, if you will. Today we have different things on the agenda. Mav's going to talk about economy and kind of where we see things going, and we have stats to back it up. And then I'll kind of get a little nerded out in the mortgage space and explain rates a little bit. And that's kind of where we're coming from today.
Yeah, we want to come in, just kind of do a quick quasi podcast style thing. Normal podcast is like an hour and a half. So we want to come in probably once a week or something, do a little 20, 30 minute quick, nuts and bolts straight to the meat and potatoes of, topic of the week. Bam, there we go. So I'm going to start off before we get into the data and everything, kind of, bring us back a couple months to when I started realizing what I'm about to talk about here in a second on the kind of a different sphere I didn't realize was happening. So what do I mean by that? So I work in the legal industry, and I actually talk to law firms and attorneys every single day. And I started noticing probably 60% of my clients are leaving big box law firms and starting their own firm. And I've been saying for a while that I think just on a macro econ scale, like people are sick of the corporate America. They've realized, I think from COVID, of like, how much instability there actually is. Most people think like, oh, I got job security. COVID quickly kaputs that and made people realize how disposable they are in the eyes of their corporate overlords. And they also realized, TikTok started blowing up and all these things. Everybody's locked at home, and they started realizing I've got a lot of skills I can monetize. I got a lot of different ways I can make money. Especially the Airbnb craze was huge at the time, which I hope you guys are doing okay now, because I don't think you are. But so at that time too, we saw all over social media, like side hustles and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Vending machines was something that was popping. Like there's always a little thing, drop shipping, e-commerce, all this stuff. And then I didn't think it would have reached the upper echelons of corporate America as much as it did, at least anecdotally, right? Where I was seeing these attorneys where you think attorneys, then also previously my last job, financial advisors. There's a lot of people having multiple different businesses. It wasn't just financial advising, it was financial advising and insurance. And there were also a lot of them going to law school to be, estate planning attorneys and blah, 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 and a lot of stuff, real estate. And then now with this legal corporate America side of things, it was wild to see. We're getting probably, anecdotally, throwing a number, probably 60, 70% of people I service are starting their own law firm. Either they're fresh out of law school or they're like, I've worked at big box law firm for 10 years and I'm sick of it and I'm doing my own.
To piggyback off of that real quick before you get into the stats, I think it's been a multitude of things. COVID, inflation, and with all that, it just showed how fragile everything is, and that you're relying on these big box companies for your employment and your money. And God forbid something like COVID happens again, and it's like you can't work anymore. So, and on top of the tech we can leverage now, ChatGPT came out during COVID time, and this AI thing is kind of taken off and exponentially crazy, and the speed at how well it's doing these things and how much it's getting better each day, really. So with all that said, not even just the law space, this is frankly applying to all the areas of, use me as the example. Started our own brokerage, got out of it, and my past one wasn't even like a big box guy necessarily, but it got to the point where it was like, oh, there's tech I can leverage and expertise I have that I can do this on my own now, and I don't have to rely on somebody else to pay me and control my life.
Yep. And what was, I guess, just the cherry on top for me was that legal space, because in the legal space, it's hard more than really any other industry. I don't think people realize that. People, I guess, maybe just think like, oh, you're an attorney, you can get clients. Attorneys are really no different than any other normal business model of financial advisors, real estate, etc. Like you have to get clients. Like it's not just, oh, I'm an attorney now. Like I got leads flooding in. It's like, No, that's why you see all those billboards for personal injury, which I could go down a whole business rabbit hole of why them over other practice areas. But anyways, so that's why most
Jumana's always watching.
yeah, right. And so that's why you see most people that come out of law school go right to a law firm and work their way up. They work their way up, right? They don't become partner for 8, 10, 12 years, depending on the practice area, depending on the firm size you get in, depending on how good you are, right? But that's why people don't just right out of law school go start a business, right? Because it's so hard and so competitive, right? So to see that on the legal vertical, I was like, whoa, like this was like one of the last to fall, I guess was kind of my opinion, right? Like obviously for years, we're ingrained in business and economics, as it is. We've been noticing all these trends for 2 years now, 2-3 years. And then but now to see that in the legal vertical, it was just mind blowing to me, right? It was mind blowing. So I got 2 big resources today we're going to check out. So we all heard it, the Great Resignation, kind of that whole, it's kind of a hot button term. Everybody loved talking about it, especially the news, right? Which it was a pretty big spike, but really not as crazy as you would have thought. Okay, and so basically I'll summarize this article is, COVID-19 pandemic, new trend emerged, labor market in 2021. Tens of millions of Americans voluntarily left their jobs. So in 2022, more than 50 million Americans took part in the Great Resignation, which means they're leaving. And how that actually broke down was, let's see here. On average, 4.5 million people quitting their job per month. So in 2023, that started dropping off gradually, right? So number of quits below 4 million on average, in the 10 of the first 11 months of the year, according to this JOLTS report. 3.47 million Americans left their job in November, the second lowest since February of 21, since the Great Resignation started.
What's happened in 2023 that the other 2 years haven't had to deal with?
Inflation and rates rising and, a lot of those types of things, right? Money's getting tight. So I won't deep dive on the rest of all this, but that's kind of the gist of the first real thing I wanted to talk about. So let's get into a term that me and you have been talking about for a couple years now, but now has kind of come to mainstream fruition: side hustle economy. Okay, I've been saying this for, a long time. But again, now that reached that legal vertical, kind of for that backstory I've been saying, I was like, this is like mainstream real now, right? So my hypothesis of everything is, I said in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a massive shift in where job loyalty lies. Okay, I think you're going to see a lot of people leaving big box companies of all industries, right? And you're going to see a power vacuum shift in 2 totally different directions. You're going to see a couple big players in every industry, the mega giants, that they're obviously going to stay. They're going to retain employment. They're going to grow, but they're going to be buying out all the middle people. So all these people at the top are either going to be leaving and starting their own small businesses, or leaving and joining other small businesses. A lot of these people in the middle are just going to get a ton of buyouts, or they're going to be downsizing. It's kind of my hypothesis of everything.
And you're seeing that with the bank industry already, of Chase, BlackRock coming in, buying these little independent banks up. And with the kind of, to your point, is like, we've been always side hustling and out of necessity, frankly. But so like we saw this, like you said, like this has been going on for years. It's just finally COVID kind of was the catalyst to like set it on fire, so to speak, and like blow it up, right? But go ahead.
Yeah, because I think, we've been doing this since 2016, side hustling really since 2016. So for the past 7.5, 8 years or so, right? Really started kind of the summer, fall of 2016. After I graduated high school, we got into online investing and a couple other business ventures and stuff. But so at that time, I'd say really from that 2016 until COVID-ish, being an entrepreneur was like, it wasn't really mainstream or like cool yet, right? And then obviously people like Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, insert influencers' names, right? And then COVID, all of us locked at home, everybody doing this side hustle stuff, making money on social media, especially with, TikTok in there, right? A whole new avenue of everything, which they paved the way with Instagram Reels and, kind of this whole other sub-economy of the internet, of course, right, which is evolving every single day, right? Now everybody's an entrepreneur, right? But they're not actually in practicality, right? It's cool now to be an entrepreneur, which I think it's awesome. Start your own businesses. It's great. You'll realize how hard it is really quickly as well. But so let's go into some numbers, because actually there's pretty surprising things. A couple things I actually wasn't too surprised on, but a couple things that I was like, interesting. So how many people have a side hustle? So let's look at US, because I could care less about our top hat, communist Canada, and our Brits. So 39% of working Americans report having a side hustle. That amounts to as many as 80 million people. So generationally, 24% baby boomers, 40% of Gen X, 50% of millennials, 46% Gen Z. So let's kind of look down here. So an additional 35 million, which is roughly 17% of the working age population, plan to start a business. 70% of Gen Z reported looking for a side hustle. 64% of Gen Z plan to monetize a project on social media in the next year. 40% started within the last year, right? So, and what's crazy though is the baby boomers, the 24%, age 59 to 77, indicated they have a side hustle. That was pretty interesting.
That is staggering. But at the end of the day, is like, okay, I mean, go back to the age group a little bit. Sorry, you and I were talking a little bit about this before doing this, and it's like, I don't know any friends that don't have a side hustle, and we're in that millennial Gen Z group. Obviously don't name them, but it's like I can't think of any. Somebody's always doing something, And again, it comes out of necessity, and frankly, it's let's say a goal orientation of like, yeah, you got debt you got to pay off, but like I'm trying to be better, which is awesome. Like, that's what we all want. But the baby boomers, yeah, very, very interesting. If you think about our grandma, she's 81, and she has a side hustle.
Yeah, she does. You're right, actually.
It just started, but she's got something going on too. Not that she needs it, but it's just like, why not make a little extra income? I'm retired. Why not? It
keeps her busy, and it's for sure. And so to a couple of your other points real quick about doing out and assessing all this stuff, the data actually shows that's not true, that was part of the part that blew my mind. And I think that goes into a deeper societal mindset that I will talk about. So why are so many people side hustling? So part of it is, need an income for living expenses. That is relatively large, obviously, in 2022 versus 2019. Makes sense. Inflation, rates, etc., right? And a new president, which didn't help those things. Disposable income for spending, obviously, flipped for 2019 and 2022. Makes sense, right? Boosting savings, decreased for 2022 because people don't have as much savings because all their expenses went up. Therefore, they had to pay for a lot more things. But the pay down debt, there was nothing in 2019.
Well, there's no student loans in 2019.
There was in 2019, but not 2020.
Okay. Thanks for the check on that. But it just goes back to your point that we've repeated over and over, is like things are different. Inflation and, the job economy itself is not as robust as it's made out to be. But yeah, I mean, you name it, there's reasons why people are doing it.
Yep. So this is where it gets interesting. The primary motivation to start or seek information about my business or side hustle, personal freedom, was 38.7%.
Which, again, ties perfectly to how you started this whole conversation here of like, people are sick of being controlled. And that's really what it is again, saw the fragility of COVID and job situation, everything else of like things outside your control, just like that. It's like, okay, well, you're not coming to work and you're not getting paid anymore. And people are, what do I do? So you get personal freedom. That's how you achieve this.
And let me take it one step further. Then randomly in 2023, they're like, okay, you guys are all back to the office now. Even though we have been efficiently working from home for 2.5 years, you're all in the office. Sorry. That sucks. Figure it out. Yeah. And it's like, so all these people are like, well, wait, I built for the last 2.5 years my whole life around working from home and being able to, I pick up my kids from school and my husband, wife, whatever, they take the kids to school and we do this and we do that. But now that's all up in the air So also gas prices rising, and now I have to find babysitters, and I have to go find this and that, and like what? So it was on top of like the fragility of COVID. It went reverted real quick back to we control you because you require this, because you have debt, and there's a whole thing I'm about to take this here in a second, guys, but like because you have debt, therefore you rely on this paycheck I give you, you will do what I say.
And it was like on the other end of that is like people who were working from home and stuff is like, oh, this is kind of nice. No commute. I'm saving an hour a day on that, which, if you do the math, it's like, okay, if you work 9 to 5, add in the commute, most people don't calculate it that way, but now your dollar or your dollar per hour is really dropping now when you add commute, gas time, or gas expense, whatever. But yeah, people got to like, I like being home. This is kind of nice. And I'm still as efficient as I was. And again, that's a whole other argument in terms of like the pros and cons of working from home. I think it's industry specific in terms of, I think there are points where it's like, yeah, you should probably be in the office for that. Like actual collaboration is probably good, but let's be honest, let's just be generous. Half of these jobs that are just pushing paper and, you can be out.
I'll be honest, I was going to say 75%. I mean, my job, perfect example. I have zero reason to ever enter an office. Yeah. So, but somehow, come this Thursday, I'll be in an office for a meeting, right? But so let's break down these reasons real quick in the percentages. So only 27% extra income to save, spend, or invest. Only 11%, 11.7 extra money to make ends meet. So in 6.2, pay off debt, 5.6 creative outlet, 4.6 felt like a calling. So this is the thing that I wanted to say, where priorities lie. People nowadays it's a weird dichotomy, okay, where they want all the personal freedom, but they don't want to prioritize paying off debt and all these other things that will give them the personal freedom that they therefore seek. So they are also, as a whole, this is a whole different thing, but this is kind of the catalyst to changing that. As a whole, you hear these older generations say, oh, everybody's lazy. Everybody's lazy. But part of that's pretty true. I'm going to give them credit because you know what? The amount of people my age I have talked to and know and see on LinkedIn and all these other stuff, right, where it's like, I have a degree, so give me a job. And it's like, no, you don't provide any valuable skills to the marketplace. Who are you to demand a $90,000 a year salary? You don't do anything, especially with AI and all this stuff. It's like most of these jobs are going to get eliminated within 2 years, most of them. And sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say you're not wrong at all. And actually, like you and I both know people who have that entitlement of like, I'm thinking of somebody from Arizona that you and I both know. And it was just said, like, hey, I got my degree and like, I'm not going to accept a 50,000-year-old job or year job. I'm better than that. And it's like, but you're not getting offered that. It's that's where capitalism reigns, right? Is like, but on the flip end is like, I get where they get this entitlement. It's like, I spent $200,000 to make $50,000 a year. Like, this isn't mathin'. And it's like, it's not. But anyway, I digress.
And so I just thought this part real quick was very interesting to me because I was like, you would think because everything's got more expensive over the last couple of years, more personal freedom. I was thinking maybe 2 or 3, but I didn't think it was going to be this different to pay off debt faster. 6.2%, under a sixth of personal freedom, and an extra income to save, spend, or invest. 27.4. Well, first off, you shouldn't be investing if you still have debt.
Well, it's like, what's personal freedom then? Like, I want to know what they're defining as personal freedom. Is it like, oh, I can go to whatever concert and bar and whatever I want to do? In which case, okay. But I mean, I'm with you. That's just a mindset thing, right? I mean,
so that's the funny thing to me of like the priorities are more personal freedom, but people don't realize also like debt is the biggest chain you will ever have in your life. That is the biggest thing that will ever hold you back from personal freedom because you will never have the freedom to do what you want if you're a slave to the lender. Like, the borrower is a slave to the lender. Dave Ramsey said all the time. It's in the Bible. It's also just normal common sense, right? So for you, people who hate the Bible thumpers out there, it's common sense. If you've got to pay Bank of America X amount of thousands of dollars every single year because you want to go to these concerts and buy these cars that just to show off to other people that, hey, look, I got money, even though I'm $55,000 in credit card debt, that doesn't make any sense. So next thing, what do side hustlers want, right? So 20% only 20% were looking to build a side hustle to quit their jobs. The remaining 80% were simply looking to make extra money. So, but then what does personal freedom mean to you?
I don't know. And that's this. It's weird that you break it. Like, I agree now that you're breaking it down this way. I didn't even think about that. First reading this earlier today. But so with all that said, like, why are we talking about this? How does this apply to Outlier and what we're doing?
Couple things. So if you're in this 80%, you just want to make extra money. You like your job. You want to make extra money and hopefully prioritize different percentages than these people do, such as pay off debt faster, then have extra income to save, spend, and invest, to then create more personal freedom. Be a part-time agent. That's kind of, we talked about this on the last one as well, where we structured it in a way where it's inexpensive to be an agent, because we don't expect or would never advocate for you to just go leave your job full time and come be an agent with us. That would be greedy, which also is what most brokers do, which is why we went the opposite route, because we understand this in the last 4 years that have happened, and would never tell somebody, hey, just go quit your full-time W-2 job and all your benefits and come being a 1099 independent contractor selling real estate, even though you've never done it before. You're going to be fine.
And on top of that is and this is just anecdotal experience, but I have a number of friends that are now going to be joining Outlier, but came to me 3-4 years ago and was like, hey, like, I'm kind of into real estate. Like, I think it'd be cool, something to do on the side, just as like family members that need it or whatever. But it's so expensive. And again, they were right. Like, it is expensive for a lot of people. When you're having a $15,000, $20,000 cap and you have 50-50 splits and, you have franchise fees, you name it, it adds up, and the money doesn't make sense at that point. It was like, well, in order for me to be an agent, I have to become full-time to make enough money to make it worth it. And another angle to this is I think about like leveraging and expertise and AI and everything else is like, if you have the time, and obviously if you want to do this, it's like, why not add another skill? Why not in your part-time? And real estate's kind of fun. It's like you're out and about, especially if you working with people you know and family and whatever. And at the same time, you're making money, gaining knowledge, and maybe setting yourself up where it's like, oh, shoot, like I've made, for the last 3 years, I've been part-time. This is just an example. And it's like, I've been able to make $30,000 a year in those 3 years. It's like, oh, I made an extra $90,000 over these 3 years, and hopefully you save and pay off debt and whatever else. But maybe you can get to that point where you really do have personal freedom. And again, it doesn't have to be real estate. It's just how we apply it, because that's what we do. But that's how this plays into the side hustle economy, and why Outlier is set up for the full-time guy or girl who wants to do it and take it and run with it, or that part-time person is like, look, like I like real estate, I'm into it, but I have a good job anyway, and like this is just gonna, fun for me, and or like I just want to make a little extra something. Yep.
And one last point on to echo all of that. So something you could also do is start out with the classic plan. Start out with the classic plan that is $130 a month plus association fees plus gas. $130 a month. Get the training. Get your feet wet in real estate. Start understanding it, and then you could always switch to the elite plan with Sync CRM and leads. Quick note, guys. The first employee we got it's a side hustle for her to call and book meetings for all of our leads. So another backup of our point, but also for the person who wants to do it part-time, you can start here, get your feet wet, the classic plan, understand real estate, and then guess what? When you want to move up and get leads handed to you, they're on a silver platter. They're already booked and talked to and hot leads. There you go. We've got over 100 leads in a month.
Yeah.
On our first month of running ads for these leads, 100 leads, which you're for marketing for people who don't know. First 2 months are your slowest month. That's where you're figuring out what ads work, which ones don't, which lead sources are coming the best over the others, etc. So there you go. You could always do that and then have these hot leads handed to you on a silver platter, meetings booked. There you go. You're done. Yep. So let's switch topics to you for the mortgage stuff real quick.
All right. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about mortgages and interest rates because it's been a hot topic for the last, frankly, year. And it's just been a wild time. We no less than 24 months ago, we're about a third of the rate we're at now. I remember the day that COVID hit and I was in the middle of showings, all gloved up, masked up, and the rates at the time were sub 3%. And at the height, for perspective, no more than 18 months later, Halloween of this year, or of 2023 rather, was the height at like 8.2%. Okay, and that was a prime rate. So I wanted to kind of dive into where mortgage rates come from, how does it affect with the market and everything else, and then kind of go into why right now is kind of a weird time. Okay, so let's pull up. Okay, so first things first, mortgage rate is based on the 10-year bond, treasury bond, right? So as of today, it's like 4.002%. Historically speaking, they say, okay, the 10-year treasury bond is at 4%. Banks have a spread on that, so they can make money too, because this is the money they're getting loaned at that percentage, right? So they're like, okay, well, we got to upcharge what we're loaning out so we can get paid. So typically, historically speaking, it's been 1.5% more than the treasury bond rate. Okay, so in a normal market, it'd be, okay, bond rate's 4%, your mortgage rate, prime rate is 5.5%. Okay, makes sense. Right now, they're doing a prepayment risk assessment, if you will. It's almost an insurance plan because the word on the street has been rates are going to drop drastically, blah, 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 blah. Be careful who you listen to. But with that said, what's the interest rate right now as of today?
As of today, it is average of 6.74.
Which is low. The better average is about 7. Let's say 7. So 4 or 7 minus 4 is what?
3.
I thought it was 1.5.
Yeah, somehow it doubled.
Well, it doubled because of that prepayment risk assessment. What does that mean? Well, when banks write a mortgage, it typically takes about 2 years for them to finally make a profit. Okay, you have costs in there. You have underwriting, processing, other different fees in there that the bank has to pay for to create that mortgage. So, if they write a mortgage now in 2023, well, now it's 2024, but they won't see a profit till 2026, let's say, right? But based on what Jerome Powell's telling us and everything else, is like these rates are probably not going to be 8% and or 7% even. They're going to be lower. So the bank knows, well, shoot, if I write a mortgage at 7% today, based on what the Fed's saying and everything else and the way things have been going, is like that borrower is not going to stick in that interest rate till the term of their loan, being 30 years. Not going to happen. And even more than that, it's not like, oh, it's going to be 5 years from now. It's going to be like, oh, maybe a year from now, it's going to be cheap enough for them to refinance. And again, it takes 2 years for the bank to make money. So it's like, well, we just lost money if they refinance, let's say, within 12 months. So that's why they're baking in this extra 1.5% into the fee. So what does that mean? I mean, what does it mean to you is like, historically speaking, it's like, okay, it's 1.5%, but now it's 3%. Is that a good deal?
No.
No, it's not.
Absolutely not.
On top of the current purchase prices we're at and everything else. Now, there's been a lot of talk as of late of, rates are dropping, best time to buy, blah, 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 blah. Funny thing is, no more than 30 days ago, I believe it was Forbes or one of the big magazines. They came out with a report that said it was the least affordable time to buy since 1984. Okay, that is 40 years ago. So you mean to tell me that because they dropped, let's be generous and say a full point, that now's a good time to buy? I mean, so with that said, there is an angle where they're right. And what these people are saying is, you better get it now, because if these rates keep dropping, prices are going to go up again and a more influx of buyers. And you know what? They're right. They are. I mean, I personally have a number of buyers that I could call tomorrow if the rates got to like 5.5 and we're going house hunting, but right now they're sitting on the sidelines because it's not affordable. However, it's just, I don't see, these people that are telling you we're going to be in the 5% this year, I hope to God we are not. As a real estate broker and owner, that's part of me is like, yeah, that's awesome. We're going to make a crap ton of money. But as a patriot and as a human, what bad do you see of that? What do you see of, okay, all of a sudden rates are at 5%, and what happens in the market?
Couple things. Well, we go back to a fake economy. B, home prices skyrocket, and people in the middle class who have not been saving as much as they, you wouldn't even think of, like, you wouldn't even advise them really to save as much as they would need for that, because then you're going to see again back to 2021 numbers where everything's going 50K over asking and things like that. It's like, so all the people in the middle class, they're getting bought out.
Exactly. And so with that said, it's like the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and that divide gets even greater. And I mean, think about it. It's like this goes for cars and most things like this, cars, houses. People don't come in, like I don't get clients that say, hey, my budget is $250,000. They say, hey, my budget is $2,000 a month. Or same with the car. Nobody comes in and says, hey, my car budget is $50,000. They say, hey, I can afford $500 a month. So you add that into, these interest rates and these prices, it's not a great deal. And like, if the money's there and the money makes sense, like, I'm sure you guys have heard or seen like the way we approach purchasing a home, and we just want it to be affordable and where you're not stretching yourself and making bad decision, frankly. But with all that said, for most of those out there, it's like, it's really not a great time to buy. And yeah, with that said, if these rates do drop, which I hope they don't, Goldman Sachs came out like 2 days ago with a report that said their projection is that they think rates, even come like election time in 2024, is still going to be about 6.25%. It's really not that, half a point from the low end of today. So not these points that people are saying like, oh, we're going to drop 6 more times at, a quarter of a basis point each time. It's like, okay, well so we're going to be in the 5s then? Like, and again, if the 5s do happen, we go back into this fake economy. We go back into these homes are ungodly expensive. And tying into that is like, that doesn't solve another problem of housing, which is the inventory. We can't build fast enough, and there's still people out there, a lot of them, that even have lower rates than that. And so they're like, well, I'm at 2.5%. For 30 years, I'm not doing a thing. So those people aren't going to sell. And then again, the homes the new builders are building are not really affordable, because that's not the money they make. They make money in the $400,000, $500,000 houses. But again, the middle class is just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so again, just be careful, you guys. I mean, what do you think?
Well, quick note that immediately, this is the first thought that popped in my head when you just talked about the supply, is just because the interest rates are dropping doesn't mean the lumber prices are. That like, just because we drop down artificially to a 5.5 doesn't mean your lumber prices are now $100 a piece. Like, remember when the lumber price was, peaked out at like, it was like, I don't even know how much it was. It was like $600 or something crazy, right? So it's like, that's first and foremost. I mean, so what I guess as an advice piece, because I don't disagree with the single thing you said, as an advice piece to tie it into 2 things here one thing we talked about today clients, agents, everybody out there, don't let this be your priority list. If I were to prescribe one, it would be 98% of people need to pay off debt first and get a side hustle to pay off debt first, and then to make your extra money to save and invest, put a big red X through the spend, and then that will then create more personal freedom where, guess what? You don't have to worry about being bought out of the market. You don't have to worry about realistically what your interest rates are and things like that. But people need to shift their mindset to, it's the same in cars, like you said, of, I can afford X amount per month versus I have paid off X amount of debt and have X amount of savings, and this is the type of house I need. Therefore, I'm going to prepare myself properly to this is what I'm going to spend, right? It's not just, I don't care what the interest rate is, and I don't care what this or that is. I can only afford $2,000 a month and still have all of my other debt.
And one more quick point to the rate drop. And if it's so sudden that these people are talking about that they think it will be, I hope it's not. It's not siloed. Just because, if rates drop across the board, it doesn't mean like, now housing's more affordable and everything else is affordable. It's like, okay, tying into the influx of buyers, right? So these prices go up. When rates are cheap, things cost more because it's cheaper to get the financing. So again, these things aren't siloed. So it's like, now you can afford that $300,000 house, right? But it's like soon that next car you got to buy is 25% more expensive. And the food at the grocery store is going to be 25% more expensive. And so again, these things are not siloed. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling the pain right now with inflation. And it's like, this is just a Band-Aid. The whole reason we got to this mess is because the financing was too cheap to begin with.
I wouldn't even say it's a Band-Aid. I think it's worse than that. I think it's literally just blowing air on the wound. That's it. Because, excuse me, because the thing is with economics, you think inflation's bad now, we artificially drop to 1.5 or to 5.5%. It's going to get 10 times worse because of exactly what you just said. We're going to print more money and we're lending out more money and everything's going to get that much more expensive. And real inflation right now is probably about 19, 20, 21%. It's going to go to 30 if we artificially drop to 5.5. So that's great. Sure. A ton more buyers, all you agents out there who aren't saying honest, good advice because you just want a paycheck. You tell all of your people all your clients to go, just go buy the house. There you go. You'll never get one at this interest rate again for a long time. Well, guess what? Because they are only focused on interest rate and not paying off debt and actually doing it the right way, they're going to be screwed 18 months from now when everything gets way more expensive and our inflation rises to 30%.
And let me be clear. This is not an attempt to crap on purchasing a home. I've purchased plenty. I still own a couple. But all we're getting at is there's a smart way to do it. Don't feel like don't have FOMO and feel like, I'm missing out on all. It's like, you got to stop comparing yourself. And I've struggled with this. We've all struggled, especially with social media. It happens. I get it. But you know what? I'm going to take it from Alex Hermosi. You're going to die. I'm going to die. And that applies to all the haters. Everybody out there is like, people don't give a crap about you. Okay. So focus on you, focus on your wallet and what you can do. So with that said, is like, there's a good way to buy even now. Okay. Getting out of debt. Saving income, making sure that your monthly payment is, a quarter of what you bring home a day, or a day. That'd be awesome. A month, if not better. Getting off the debt, creating savings. And then it's like, I don't care what rate it is. It doesn't matter. I can afford it regardless, right? So that's kind of what we're getting at, is like, just set yourself up for success. With that said, here at Outlier, if you can pull it up, Mav, we got the Homebuyer Boot Camp. I'm Ramsey trusted. That's another thing. So subscribe to Dave Ramsey. Mav's got his book on the shelf. But with that said, we also have a Homebuyer Boot Camp. So the whole idea is, it's tough out there to buy. We get it. We have friends that are in that boat themselves. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. If your goal truly is, I need to buy a home or I want to buy a home in 12 months, whatever it is, come in. We'll sit down with you, look at your budget, look at what type of home you are looking for that you need and or want, but really need. Let's focus on that word. But then we're legit going to sit down with you, come in, how much money you make, what bills do you have, where's this money going? Okay, do you really need 8 streaming subscriptions? Probably not. I'm sure there's a few that's like, oh, I forgot I even had it, because I've been there myself. So even down to the little details, that's why we're here. And on top of that, the outlier agent you're paired with is going to have a sense of accountability to you and you to them. So it's, hey, every few weeks, every month, hey, client, how's that plan going? Are you sticking with what we set out and mapped out together? Are you saving that $1,000 a month? Did you get rid of those subscriptions? Are you not going out to the bar 3 times a week? There's ways that you can set yourself up for success. Again, we're all about getting out of that victim mentality. You need to take control of what you can do, and what you can do is control how you spend your money.
Yep, and I got 2 points to that. You're 100% right. First point is the Joneses are broke, right? Don't compare yourself to the Joneses. They're broke. Second thing is money doesn't care how you feel. Money just is. Money just is a thing. You need to take control of that money and do with it strategically intelligent things, and not wish-wash with your emotions of just what you want and feel. That's how you get screwed, right? Ben Franklin on the $100 bill does not care how you feel on that day.
Nope.
He spends the same and will hurt you just the same and cost the same.
100%. So that's kind of the whole purpose of this whole thing. I just wanted to explain rates, where they come from, what they're looking like as of today, why it's a little weird. Again, typically it's 1.5% over the 10-year bond. Today it's almost 3%, if not exactly 3% over. And again, it's because these banks are baking in this extra fee, more or less, of covering their butts, because they're under the assumption that rates are going to be lower than what they are, which they probably will be. They already are. As of 30 days ago, they're lower now than they were. But they foresee that, okay, in the next year or two, they're probably not going to be this 8%. But again, with that said, that means prices are skyrocketing, and other things are going to get way more, expensive. Yep. So
there we go. That's it. Check us out, outlierrealestate.com. If you want to check out the Homebuyer Bootcamp, go to resources, scroll down. We got a buyer handbook you can download right there from one button click. You can contact us. And if you want to join Outlier, you can click that Join Outlier tab, fill out this form, and we'll get in contact with you.
And give us a call, email us, whatever. If you got questions, be happy to talk. But yeah, side hustle economy, if that's something you guys are interested in, that's half of why we set up the way we did. And then again, buyers, clients, again, this applies to agents too, in terms of our mentality with money and setting you guys up for success. But yeah, check us out.
All right. Bye-bye.